Hi, it's Michael Dermer, and in this lesson we're going to talk about the importance of cash. You know, lots and lots of businesses have really good ideas. The reason they don't make it is often how they manage your cash. So we're going to talk about why cash is king. So you think about running a business, the one thing you have to always keep your eye on is cash, right? Cash is, you have to think of it almost like the oxygen for your business. So cash doesn't just come in the door on its own, right? It's how you manage that cash that actually gives your ability to run your business more effectively. So how do you actually go about managing your cash more effectively? First of all, what I would suggest is have a weekly cash meeting. Even if it's just you, where you sit down at a regular time each week and think about your cash inflows and outflows. That'll be the one forum each week to think about all the different things that we're going to talk about and how to integrate them in to have a real cash management program. Okay? The next thing you do is you would analyze accounts receivable and accounts payable. Okay, so what do I mean by that? When you generate sales and you cut an invoice to a customer, that generates what they call accounts receivable. It's the things you're supposed to receive. Okay? You also have what's called accounts payable. Accounts payable is when you owe somebody money or a payable. Okay? So accounts payable and accounts receivable tells you exactly your cash that's supposed to come in and your cash that's supposed to go out. These reports are readily available in any common accounting software package. So each week you're going to sit down and you're going to go, okay, what are my accounts receivable? What are my accounts payable? When I look at that list of customers on my accounts receivable, I might notice, oh, there's a particular customer that's taking too long to pay. Or I might look at my accounts payable and go, wow, we can slow down paying that particular vendor of ours. Okay? So each week, look at accounts receivable, look at accounts payable. It's a great indication of where your cash is coming from and your cash is going. Next is monitor specific customers. When you go and look at that accounts receivable report, you'll see a list of your customers and how much they owe you and how long their bills have been due. Okay? Keep an eye out on specific customers that might be notoriously late at paying, right? Or have particular large amounts that are out of whack. And what you can do is say, okay, even though we have our normal billing and collection processes, maybe for this particular customer, we need to have another conversation with them, or we need to change the process a little bit so they're more aggressive at paying their bills, okay? Keeping an eye on individual customers, right, really helps you stay on track. Another way that you can help manage cash more effectively is by something called factoring. And what that means is when I generate a sale and I send a customer an invoice, where let's say they owe us $50,000, it might take 30 or 45 or 60 days to collect that $50,000. But there are companies called factors that will actually allow you to sell them your accounts receivable, and they will advance money against that $50,000. So the typical example would be they would advance you the day you cut the invoice, 80% of that. So in my example, they will write you a check for $40,000, right? And then when the rest of the money is collected, right, they will take out their fee, which I'll explain in a minute, and then forward you the balance of the $50,000, okay? It's a great way to get cash quickly and not have to rely on your collection processes. The only thing I would tell you, it can be very expensive. It can range from anywhere from 5 to 20% of the amount of the invoice, okay? So use factors only if you need to. Next is, you may actually slow down the way you pay your vendors, or you may go back to them and negotiate longer payment terms. So let's say, for example, you're doing a lot of business with a vendor and you're paying them 15 days after they provide the services. Go back to them and say, hey, I think I'm an important customer of yours. I really would like to have a little more flexibility in how I pay. I've shown you that I'm a good customer for you. So I'd like to pay 45 days after you bill me instead of 15 days. Okay? So slowing down your disbursements of cash is another way that you can manage your cash a little bit more effectively. Next is when you think about large expenses. So let's say, for example, you had to buy a big piece of equipment. And that piece of equipment was going to cost you $100,000. And that's a lot of money to outlay for a small business, right? You might say to yourself, okay, how do I time that purchase so it's in line with the time of year, for example, that I might have more cash? Or even better, can I take that $100,000 and spread it out over a year or 2 or 3 years. Now, one way you can do that is obviously by getting some type of financing. But even if you just go to your vendor and say, hey, listen, I'd like to spread this out over 2 months or 3 months or 6 months. If you're a good customer, a lot of times your vendors will take you up on that. So try to spread out your large cash disbursements so they don't disrupt your cash management along the way. And finally is inventory management. You know, if you think about inventory, let's say you're a shoe store, right? You've got to have lots and lots and lots of shoes. You've got to have different styles. You've got to have different sizes. You've got to have men's shoes. You've got to have women's shoes. All of that shoe inventory has to be paid for, right? You're going to have to outlay that cash for that inventory to have it on the shelves and have it in the stockroom, right? So if you have to have 60 days worth of inventory, you have to lay out a lot of cash. But imagine if you only had 6 days worth of inventory. And every 6 days, you got a new shipment of shoes. Sure, you'd have to unload more shoes more often, but you'd only be out 6 days of cash, okay? We call this just-in-time inventory. You're trying to get your inventory shipments to be just in time to serve your customers, meaning as close to the time that you're actually going to generate a sale, okay? Obviously, you can't do this every day in my example, the shoe business, but try to get your inventory management so you're receiving your inventory as frequently as you can so that you're not outlaying cash to support a whole bunch of inventory. Okay? Cash doesn't just come in and out of the door on its own. It's really how you manage it that makes the difference. We've provided you a couple of different techniques here to become better at cash management, but in this lesson, we've written out a whole bunch of other techniques that you should go take a look at to put in place your own cash management program.